Okay.
All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the Athens-Clarke County Board of Elections and Voter Registration Special Call Meeting. Date is June 20th, the time is 6:04 p.m. and we are meeting today at the Ben Epps Airport Community Room 1010 Ben Epps Drive. First item on the agenda is to adopt the agenda. The chair will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
I second.
Motion, Ms. Dell, second, Ms. Fambro. All those in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Agenda is adopted. Next item on the agenda is the purpose of the meeting, which is the 2024 voting precinct open house. So the first item on the agenda is the purpose of a moderated discussion rather than a formal business meeting. So the chair will entertain a motion to suspend the rules. Okay, motion is Fambro, second is Till, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Lisa, are you doing this or someone have?
I'll do it, but when Charlotte's ready.
Right.
The Charlotte will be perfect.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right.
How weird.
Yeah. So welcome everyone. Thank you for coming to our open house public input session. The purpose of this meeting was to get input from you on our proposed changes. It's a terrible idea, a wonderful idea. We're happy to share well, through the process of this presentation, we'll share with you why we made the changes, why we believe they were necessary, and why we selected the one we did. The board, a little bit of history on what led us up to today. The board met we had four work sessions with the Geo Information Office of Athens-Clarke County. Those were on April 5th, April 18th. Yeah, it's back in my mind, the board. And going into the meeting, we initially thought we're going to just look at two locations, ACC Transit Multimodal Center, which was, or currently is, because we haven't made any changes, precinct 4A. Turns out that precinct was actually out of the precinct lines as they existed, and folks were having to travel across precinct lines. And then the other one was 6B. Just the mall, and as we all know, the mall will be no more. So we need to have a new location for that. And then through the process of the work session, the staff and the other board members identified some other locations that we wanted to take a look at. And those are Winterville Train Depot, ACC Fleet Management, Fire Station number 4, 3, and 7. And I'm sure we'll get into those specifics later and after the meeting. We can look at the maps and answer any questions anyone may have. All right. So the rules are suspended. So go ahead. GIS office and Charlotte.
Yes, so next is Mary.
Director.
The geospatial information.
Yes, should I say Mary?
Martin.
Mary. Geospatial office, who has assisted us with the process of gathering information and looking at our territory and making suggestions and recommendations for locations and possible changes to our district lines. Here.
Yeah, one of the things I was gonna talk about first were, some of the criteria that we were asked to go by, when coming up with these polling locations and precinct boundaries. And one of them is for the polling locations, accessibility. We have where it must be a centralized location with a 15-minute drive from the voters' residence, if possible. That doesn't always work out, but that was one of the accessibility. The other was space capacity. It must be able to accommodate maximum number of voters. And then the third is owner consent and availability. It must be available on voting dates. And then the precinct boundary criteria, the boundary lines must follow some kind of physical feature if possible. And in doing that, what we decided to use was the US Census Bureau 2020 census block boundaries. And those were used to define precinct boundaries, or those were used to define precinct boundaries. Census blocks are the smallest geographic area for which the Bureau of the Census collects and tabulates decennial and degree census data. The boundaries are formed by streets. This is the main part. The boundaries are formed by streets, roads, railroads, streams, or other bodies of water, other physical and cultural features, and the legal boundaries shown on Census Bureau maps. So what we did, and I'm going to go up to the maps in a minute, we used the census blocks and combined them as best we could using the 2020 registered voters list. And then we mapped the voter list by census blocks. There's two different, show you what I'm talking about. On this first map here, showing blue lines show the existing precinct boundaries. And then that still shows the proposed boundaries. And then the 01680B, those are the precinct boundary numbers, and the table over here basically shows the different polling locations, and depending on the color, it tells whether it's existing votes. That makes sense. So this correlates with the color polling locations. And then the second map shows how we came up with these boundaries. What we did is we took the 2020 registered voter list and we mapped those based on census block. So basically what that's telling us is, like right here, there were 25 registered voters in the census block. So we basically added up the census blocks to see how many are to find the area, see, yeah, sorry, get a certain capacity for each polling location, there's capacity. And so we just want to go down that. Anyway, the registered voter numbers are helping us see what the boundary definition would be in order to put the criteria together to the polling location in terms of the number of people. Makes sense? Sure. I mean, like,
I can talk to you about that in a minute, if you don't, yeah, I'll get to that.
I got that information, Lisa. We went through the different channel polling locations, and she gave us what the maximum number would be for that condition, and that's what we used to go on boundaries. And then the links, where these show the individual voters, registered voters within each census block. This one shows the total number of voters within each precinct. So this is the real number you're looking at. This is what we used based on Lisa's number. Define it towards. This would be the maximum number, if possible. One of the other things we tried to do is we wanted to make the polling location versus the votes. And so we tried to centralize those benefits, but that doesn't always work out based on, for population of registered voters. So that's why you might see, like, we're here in 2A, it's not in the center. Anyway, that's basically the process that we went through. Am I missing something? Yes. As far as the polling, that was kind of a challenge because there aren't that many buildings that are in. So one of the things we looked at ACC government buildings And that was our preference, have that. Second, we looked at churches, and those were okay regarding preference, but we had to have that approval was, several things, one of the availability of the states. And then the other was, the girls' club. And that, okay, but we had to have approval. And then the last, schools, those were okay, for kids. So,
Pretty,
yeah, sure.
yeah. And we'll just hold the question until the end. We can do question, public comment. We don't typically two-way conversation during public comment, but we're a little soon as that.
All right, so next, Lisa is gonna give the rundown on what our co-locations are currently like, as far as do they meet the requirements that we need. One of the things that we were challenged with after the new voting system was implemented is the fact that our locations needed to have the electrical capacity. And then there's another caveat to it, that we have to make sure that the space is ample enough where we can meet the 1 per 250 voter criteria, which is set by law, that there has to be at least one voting system unit or a compartment per every 250 voters active in that particular polling location. So it met us with some challenges, but we met that challenge. And so now we're looking at, again, the board, we identified some locations that we really needed to tackle. But in the process, that also opened up an opportunity for the board to consider all of our territory. So we were able to make some changes, not just at the locations, but we were also able to adjust some lines so that there would be a balance of numbers at these polling locations. So Lisa's going to go through that process and how they came about.
Okay, there's only a little bit more to say about that. So once the buildings were chosen that we wanted to look at, of course, we had to reach out to them and find out if they were, amicable with having a polling location on election day there. Everywhere except for where we had hoped to move 8C, which is Barnett Shoals Fire Station, everywhere said yes, except we were looking at the UGA vet school, and they didn't feel like it was the best fit for them, considering the animals that come in and out of there, that it might not be the best place for voters to come in and out. So 8C is staying where it is for now until we find another location. With every building that we looked at, we had to make sure that there was ADA access for people with disabilities, that it met all of those requirements, that the space that they wanted to give us, the particular room they wanted to give us, met all of those requirements, and that there was ample parking. Because one of the challenges of some of our precincts is also parking, so we don't want to swap one bad situation for another, so we'll make sure there's plenty of parking. We had to do electrical evaluations on each location. They have all passed, and we can use them with no problems. One of the other things about using a private building is if there are electrical upgrades that need to be done in the space, that creates an issue of who's going to pay for that electrical upgrade. So using private buildings can sometimes not be as optimal as using a county building. But luckily, everyone that we chose to talk to met the requirements that we needed. We wanted to make sure that the space had room for the precinct to grow so that it can stay there for a long period of time, for as long as possible, and we were able to do that. All the locations that we chose are much larger than the spaces that they're leaving. The number of assigned voters that Charlotte mentioned, the 1 in 250 rule, which, is like shorthand to us now. We just say 1 in 250 and we all know what we mean. It was a rule created in SB 202, where, as Charlotte said, that there has to be one compartment voting booth provided for every 250 voters in that precinct. So that gives us a formula to figure out how much equipment will fit in that building, how many voters then can we assign to that precinct. So that's how that formula was done. And we worked with GIS to reconfigure the boundaries to, put the optimal number of people at each location, which we were shooting for under 4,000 at every location.
So now that we've gotten those few things out of the way, everybody has their idea of what a precinct should look like. It would be perfect if it was a square, and it was a circle, and the location was in the middle, and that it was just gonna be, ample for everybody. We can't make everybody happy, but we do one thing, we have to follow the law. So there's some requirements in the official code of Georgia that we have to abide by when we're dealing with polling location changes and redivisions and such, and dividing lines. And one of the things that the code allows is for the superintendent, which is our board, to make changes and select, fix all of our polling locations. And we want to make the polling locations to be within inside the boundary lines differently than what we have now when it comes to the multimodal location, which at the time when that location was considered and selected, there wasn't a location that would be best for that particular precinct boundary. So the board at that time selected a location outside of the boundary, which there is a code section that allows you to do that, but you have to show where you're not able to just identify a location within the boundary. So it does have that extra add to it, a disclaimer, but the main idea was for our board is to identify a place that's suitable inside the boundaries. And that way, there's not any confusion for our voters. So we have that code section. And then we have 21-2-261. And that talks about the boundary lines and how if the board wanted to combine two precincts, if they wanted to split a precinct because it was too large. But there are provisions in the law that allows that. And there is also wording in this particular code section that says that no boundaries shall be altered during the 60-day period of a general primary election, and not during a 30-day period when there is a special election that's going on. So I also wanted to highlight 21-2-261.1, where it talks about.
Sorry, I thought I went back.
Yeah.
What's it doing? I don't know. There we go. Is that where you're supposed to be?
There we go. Okay, so this is the code section that provides the guidelines and the precinct lines. It's kind of what Mary touched on about the different boundaries that can be used and the visual features that can be used when you're drawing a precinct line. So I wanted to make sure we highlighted that. And then moving forward, what should we expect? When should we expect these changes to take place? And this is the time that I'm hoping that I can get the favor of the board to just walk through this with me. So the deadline for us notifying affected voters of Athens-Clarke County is in 21-2-265. And the dates that I'm noting here in this presentation are prescribed by law. And it's the department's intent to notify and educate our voters of these changes as soon as possible. So what I'm giving you is a deadline of when these changes can take place. Another thing that I wanted to highlight is the state election board rule 183-1-7-.01 requires us as the elections office to inform our voters within this time period. And the only way that we can do that is by presenting each voter that's affected by these changes with a voter registration card, or what you would call a polling precinct card. So we have a lot that has to take place leading up to this time. So this is what I would like to unfold today. There is a special election that is scheduled for November 7th for the city of Winterville as well. The city of Winterville will have a general election, municipal election. There is also this is also the same day of the special election, which will be called in the next month, of a countywide election where we will elect our clerk of court position. So I'm estimating that it's gonna take us 8 weeks from the time that the board approves the locations and for GIS to identify who those voters are that are affected by these changes. Us to be able, staff to be able to go into the voter registration system, which is called Jarvis, to go inside Jarvis and make the changes in Jarvis. An opportunity for us to also audit the information that we're making, the changes, because we don't want to change any voters that shouldn't be. Okay. Then we have to give at least 3 weeks of printing because the cards have to be printed. And once we enter the changes into the Jarvis system, and then we will receive those cards and get those cards out into the hands of our voters. So we want to give ourselves 8 weeks to get this done, and we want to get it done accurately and make sure there are no errors. So I went in and identified what those 8 weeks are. So, remember how I did this. Okay, so 60 days, because it's required by law, to have cards with identified voters and not making changes. For the November 7th election, that means that we can't make any changes past September 8th. And for the folks that are in the city of Winterville, because they're having a special election, we would have to have those changes done by October 8th. Now, the next election that we will have will be the PCP, which is the presidential preference primary. That will be March the 12th. And so 60 days from that day, because it is considered an election, not a special election, it'll be 60 days. So it will January 12th be the last day that the board may change that. So we're way ahead of schedule. So and as I stated, we need this 8-day process. So then we have to look at, so when we notify our voters, if we make the changes, the board makes the changes for the November 2nd election, Tuesday, October 24th is the last day that we are to inform our voters. If it is the PPP election, presidential preference primary, then February 27th is the last day that we should get cards in the hands of our voters. So I wanted to look at some facts and issues. We have a lot to deal with, okay? So I took I'm going to say what I call preparing for an election. I took that particular calendar and I entered all of the steps that we have to take when it comes to making these polling location changes. So if I was going to fit everything into our November 7th event, then this is how it would roll out. We would have to get our start our polling location clock, I would call it, by July 14th. That means that board should vote on it, we get it and start working on it, get it in the system, talking with GIS, that 8-week process that I mentioned to you previously. Then the remaining affected ACC voters, if it was the city of Winterville, we would have to get it started on July 14th. If it was the remaining ACC voters, if we have the special election and the board decides to change, we need to start working on our 8-week process by August the 13th. Following that, we will have qualifying. Following that, we will start requesting of absentee ballots. And then we will have our LNA process. And then we will have the last day to register to vote. Just going down the calendar, we will start our advanced voting and absentee ballot mailings. We would, at that particular election, we would post notices of the polling location changes in the legal organ by law required by October 24th. Then the last day to request an absentee ballot, October 27th, advanced voting is November 3rd, and then election day is November 7th. If you notice, these changes will need to be made earlier than October 8th to meet the requirements of the ballot. And then LNA is scheduled for September 13th, and the ballot information is required by, or no later than August 28th. It puts us in a crunch. I just want to make sure that that was noted. Not to say that we can't. But we would not want to because we want to make sure we not make any errors. And then I would say historically, in my years of working in elections, one of the wisest things that you can do when you're making changes is to post your notices in the precinct at an election to say, hello, voters, this is where you're voting today, but in the next election, you may be voting somewhere else. Hopefully at that time, we can identify who those voters are so that if someone comes in and we have a flag on their name, we can be able to hand them a sheet of paper to say, you are one of those voters and that you will be getting a card in the mail. So that to me is a great rule of thumb. It has been something that I've always stood by, and it does help a little with the confusion because anytime you make changes to polling locations, you're gonna have problems. Voters are gonna show up who never voted at their polling precinct because they always voted early. And then the last time they voted at their polling precinct was the 2020, I'm gonna say the 2010 election. And so, yeah, and it's always, we haven't voted there since 2020. Where have you been? Well, they voted early. So it's always good to get that word out as quickly as possible. I mean, over communicate, and that's what we're going to do. So that our voters are not confused on election day and going from one place to another and just confused. So I want to knock that out as much as possible. Now let's look at what this all looks like if the board decides to make the changes prior to the March 12th election. Again, we would post those notices at the polling locations that we know for sure are going to have a change either in their location or because we changed some boundary lines, they're going to be going to a different location. We want to have an opportunity to notify these voters right away at the November election. And that's what I have there. So our polling location clock will actually begin November 7th. But again, we're going to start sooner because we're going to start as early as November the 7th because voters will get that information at the special election. They vote in November. So the earliest day to request an absentee ballot for the presidential preference primary is December 26th, the day after Christmas. Can you believe it? And then our potential date for our LNA will be January 23rd. Our Europe Hotline deadline, those are for our uniform and overseas voters that will begin receiving their absentee ballots as early as January 27th. The last day for us to notify the voters who are affected by the polling location changes would be February 11th, 2024. Again, that deadline would be February 9th because February 9th is on a Sunday. So we will make sure we do it and have it Sunday. We definitely want to meet the deadline. Then we will start advanced voting. Of course, the last day to register to vote will be February 12th. We'll start advanced voting February 19th, and we will post the polling location notices in the legal organ on February 27th. Last day to request an absentee ballot on March 1st. Advanced voting will end on March 8th, and then election day will be March 9th. So it is a recommendation to the board that we begin advertising these locations at the November 7th general election, which is the general municipal election, countywide special election. And in all affected locations, we display signs informing our voters that the current location may not exist in the next election, and that they will receive a notification in the mail no later than February 9th via USPS. We will post a notice at all of our polling locations or post notices of the polling location changes in the legal organ on February 27th, no later than February 27th, okay? We will notify the previous locations in writing of the changes and the date that these changes appear in the legal organ. And then we will post notices at a previous polling location and 3 other places of interest in the vicinity of each location. This is all required by law. And that will be done no later than Saturday, March 9th. And then our voters will begin voting at the proposed locations beginning the March 12th election. Again, these deadlines or dates are just for us to have I'm going to say that date, but we will definitely begin communicating as quickly as possible. We also have coming up our voter education week. We will be communicating, again, over communicating about these co-location changes. So this will not be the last time that our voters hear about it. And I believe that's all.
Okay, thank you. So the next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there any person wish to make a public comment? Okay. Hearing none? So does anyone have any questions for us? Okay. Well, I'm back. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go.
Sorry, hi. Essentially, I was wondering how many voters are going to be affected by these changes? How many people will be in the precinct and how many people's polling life is going to change?
That is a good question. We have not identified that number yet. Because it's gonna depend on when the lines, whether they're split or when the lines are adjusted. And that's something that has to be identified, and I have that broken down in that 8-week window. But that's a great question, and I'll get with you with GIS and once these, knowing that there won't be any other changes after tonight, I will be able to have that number for you. Next meeting. That's
I don't think it's been mentioned, perhaps it was in the notice, what four that we're proposing and to where. It was on the maps, but we'll list those out.
maybe there is help on this.
Well,
They're right there.
I can do it.
Yeah.
No, I was saying, I don't know for sure that, we scrutinize these, what I was gonna say, but that's not the thing.
Yeah. So I can listen them off in no particular order.
Or we can see what goes to that. Sure.
So the first one that you mentioned was mall. Here, moving that in the cooperative extension office, we already have early voting there, so pretty much incorporated. Previously, it was at the ACC Fleet Management Office, we're moving that one, or we're proposing to move that one to the Girl Scouts building, which is just immediately next door, better parking. Access. Also, total transit center, some of the voters here to this location. Not sure about, yes, probably, but some of those folks will be moving to the very more community center or.
Or
Yeah,
East Athens dance.
And
in that general complex, there's the three buildings we're still trying to. But, yeah. And let's see, Winterville Trade Depot will be that one, Winterville centers. Across the park.
5 Points Fire Station.
Oh, yes. 5 Points Fire Station down at the Village Avenue Baptist Church.
And 6D Fire Station, Oglethorpe.
Oh, yeah, so that's the one we did. So we. But then 0, we still have 24, get close one more. Readjust it. Okay. Yeah.
Is Mary, it's gonna get a new name or something? But that's something I've heard, that's the name thing. Is that a new name for it? Is it still Mary?
So her park is the ACC Legal Services Building
Okay.
right next to it. We're just still trying to figure out
Oh,
if maybe more close to us or possibly even the dance center unless there's a new update.
I think that we've decided that the East Athens Dance Center is a better location than her park.
Okay, Yeah, because of the ADA parking situation, and there's a lot of stairs, hills, climb. My friend did in the first part. Was there another question? Yeah.
No, so how many old locations are you proposing?
So if I understand the correct question correctly, how many of the old locations we're proposing to close? So the answer is 0. We combined one with another. So on Oglethorpe Avenue, we had the fire station there and the school. The fire station both were moved into the school. And then we opened a new one. And very more like we were just talking about.
Each day, it's complex.
In the East Athens complex, perfect, it's better name. And, so we still have 24 precincts, we're reducing it to 21.
So how many?
Six, yeah. Yeah, and when we're done, take a look at the map, there's a, legend. Yes.
And Fire Station 7 is gonna stay there until and unless you go get another. Okay.
Yeah, the staff looked at, moving into the UGA, that school there, like was said previously, they didn't feel that was appropriate to have. Any other questions? Any board members? Let's go.
Finding appropriate polling places is very difficult. Schools don't want people living there going in and out of the school property distance. At the UGA vet school, they don't want people going in and out of the street, very busy hours. So trying to find ACC building was really our first choice. And then we go to churches, some churches didn't want us there for different reasons. So there were meetings that all of us have participated in that were not. It was a very mind-bending experience trying to locate a building, make it accessible, make it closer. And so we needed a magic wand. But thankfully, GIS, these people are amazing. They know where the buildings are in Athens, they know where the landmarks are. They knew population density, they made all of it so much easier and brought it together faster than we ever could. So there was a long process that all of us went through to provide the very best that we could come up with what was available for voters, because the multimodal downtown really, the voters out here. So we really jumped a lot of kids to do the very best that we could for you without really trying to disturb anything, because we still been very, so we tried to take all of that into consideration and still give you the very best that we can come up with.
And I would also say that, most of the changes are in close proximity except for the multimodal. And that has been our precinct for so long, and thank God we're moving it back to, proximity where the voters are, and they're not having to go by there or come there and vote. I think, well, I think that we took a very good look at, the information was just as, Andy said, the information from the GIS is just totally outstanding. And whatever we asked for, they did it. And I think that, it was very thought out, very thoughtful, on everybody's part, the board. So that there could be equity in where people vote in, their polling places.
I would just add, I've also been amazed at how skilled our staff have been. The minute we asked about this, there, I mean, I remember, I think when the new district lines came out, I think I was the silly person who said, why don't we go ahead and change these precincts just in time for the district? Director Sophie White said, let's wait until people get used to new districts. And this process back in February, I checked my notes. Director Sophie gave us the rough outline of the timeline we follow. Every bit of everything we've asked about, they've had every like granular, specific, like just expert knowledge of their field to help us understand things better. And this is just, yeah, as Ms. Hill said, it's been a mind-blowing process. We hope that you agree that this is, the best fit. But that's part of what here. Once we finish talking, we'll keep hearing your questions. I look forward to hearing all your thoughts and questions about it. Take it down to question.
Ms. Ellsworth and then,
Say, I have attended the board election meetings for years, and for the 4 work sessions, I watched on YouTube with 3 of them, and they were 2 hours. And I just want to tell you what our staff and board have done. We counted GIS people. I cannot believe the level of detail and consideration that every in the research. What about this location alternative? And then the staff would have to call that location and ask, well, no, here it takes this long for whatever's across that place to actually get back to the state out. And if there's some kind of answer, there's all the electrical considerations, there's, you gotta be able to lock done from Monday night to Tuesday. If you have a closet, I mean, you wouldn't believe the detail that it has to be gone into the research. And it's, I know it, when maybe like September, October, August or September, a voter voted at the mall came forward and talked about how to get to that location. And he said, I drove by to get to the mall. Why can't you change it? And the answer was, we don't want to change the polling place. We're going on an election, you got to notify. And it was like, they listened to it. And, you know, I think they were working all winter and spring. All I can say is our board and staff have just attended everything possible. And I entirely agree with them. They haven't been, like I would go to the fire station, number 7, and I do residential, so I don't mess with that location, but they try. And, you know, you just can't create appropriate voting polling places out of it. And they're trying to do what they can with what's available. And I'll tell you, not one person suggested it had anything to do with this person. And there are other counties in the state of Georgia that is suggested. And nobody suggested that. It's been walking around this county another year, never that, I mean, that's just one of the things that nobody can say out loud or consider, not anybody's mind. So, thank you for that staff, and
So, thank you. We'll close the meeting and then we can almost. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Do you have a question? Or-
I guess the only other question I have is, we're relocating in 6 polling places. Volunteer. I guess not only could you look at this effective. Is there any consideration given to making this effective after this general election? January 1st?
Well, let's get to that.
I can kind of honestly say not, because the situations were at these polling places and the roads continue to grow. A lot of the problems was not enough space to come in and say, but every 250 voters, you have to have a set of. I've watched for 3 years, fleet management, how tight they are there, you know, how the parking is there. And some of the other places like the fire station, the fire stations don't have the space in the registered voters continue to grow, which is absolutely magnificent. But if we waited until then, we probably would not be accommodating a lot of people. We would actually be in violation of rules that we have, as Director Soldier has said. We have to be in sync with what the rules are that govern all these polling places, and there are other things that govern it also. So I think that after we looked at it and talked about it, it was an urgency there to do something about all those situations and problems. And the good part is, as I said, most of the places that were changed are probably more or less in close proximity where the people used to go, except for the mobile should have been in this area anyway.
All of this is really,
I wanted to share one more thing that I don't think is getting that attention. None of us are proposing any polling changes, polling place changes for this year. Those of us that go to vote for the county clerk, for the board, special election, will be the same polling places we went to last time. But that'll just be when we announce that people that go to vote at this place that are going to be, for proposing a change, that'll be when they see the notification. So no changes will happen until the presidential preference primary, if we proceed with this. We don't want to make any changes to the polling place this November. I want to be sure that was something came through.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to return to the rules. What?
Yeah, I'm sorry, this gentleman thing. When was the last time this was done? I know it's been at least 20 years, it's been almost 20 years. Since the precinct law changed through all the censuses and the redistricting and everything, it's out very on the map. But sure, all I'm saying.
So in the past 7 years, we combined precinct because there was some construction going on that was, I think, Overbrook Elementary School and Whitehead Road, there was that going on. And then after that, there was some polling locations that had been combined. Like 1C and 1D were combined at that time, and then they were split, and some voters went to Barnett Shoals, and then we incorporated the tennis center in that. Same thing happened with 5A and 5B and 1B and 8A. So, yes, so no, that's probably been 10, 20 years, because some of these polling locations we
Yeah,
have.
it wasn't done there.
No.
You had 2 sentences, at least 2 sentences. So, let's say there are many changes, we're going to 2 sentences. Already, and now you're doing changing. I don't know how to last it, but I tell you what, the style, I don't know what kind of magic wand they got to some of these polling places for the last 4 years that I've been on the board. But they got it going somewhere, because I'm like, this is not good. But thank God, and we're here right now, trying to remedy that.
Sorry. We learned from, for example, this room looks great for a polling place, but I'm starting, thanks to their help, I'm looking for outlets. I'm thinking about how are the buses running on it and things like that. And so this has had a lot of stuff going for it, but it's not perfect. That should take off a lot. If you really get down to it, it's hard to find 24 places in the county, believe it or not, that check all the boxes. So we found probably 22, 23 check almost all the boxes. And that last box we're trying to have to kind of limp along and find something better, but it's a lot harder than I thought it would be. I thought, well, in a county like this, we're so fortunate. For the goodness, there's 80 different places you can pick from. Not that we can find.
To kind of visit one of the emails that we received guys saw it already or not, but it was questioning of the polling location changes that we're doing, how many of them are on the transit line? And y'all can help me out, but, when you look at Overford, Scope, is it currently on the transit line? The power station wasn't, right? So then, fire station, okay, so that would be one. Leaving from the mall, going to Department Extension,
This, yeah.
okay. Fleet, is it currently on the transit line? We're moving to Girl Scouts?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, and then Winterville is not, right? So moving from Winterville to Winterville Community Center.
It wasn't before.
Yeah, right, so we're not taking precincts from the bus route, and you see where I'm going? And then we got the, Miriam Moore Community Center versus in here. It's not, but the voters were traveling a distance outside of the polling location, the previous.
East Athens-Clarke.
Yeah,
That's fine.
but when you look at that, when you look at the airport, though, think about the fact that voters were going to the the multimodal transit. Yes, that's on the bus route, but that was not even inside the polling location boundaries. So, you have that situation going on, and then you got property lines. You went going over to Milledgeville. Village Baptist Church, the ones in the village, right? But, so I feel that some of the decisions that you're making, you're not, I don't think it's disenfranchisement. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at.
And
It's a wise choice.
we've had conversations with assistant manager of the county regarding some type of transportation to this location.
Yeah.
And that's something they think they can work on. All right. I'm going to say one more thing, and then we're going to return to the rules, and then we're going to stay in our more. It was mentioned by someone before that schools are not the favorite primary location for some people. Schools, parents don't want voting there, but like Adam said, there's really no option. So we kind of felt as a consensus that if you move one, you have to move them all. So it's staying where we are. But we do have a meeting coming up with the school board in which we're going to talk to them, make sure we're all on the same page as far as election scheduling and so, yeah. With that, the chair will entertain a motion to return to the rules.
So,
Second.
Motion, Mr. Sherman, second, Ms. Bamber, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next item on the agenda are announcements. Yeah. There's a motion listed, Adam. Are you prepared to announce? Yeah. We have one next week.
27th,
Yeah, so June 27th, there's a meeting. Cooperative extension. I think I was pulling it.
I just get it done, sorry.
Stand by.
We have our next, sorry about that, and next Tuesday, June 27th, same time, we go with Cooperative Shops, 275 Cleveland Road. And then we plan to bring this to a vote at our July 11th meeting, which will be over at 120 West Doherty Street, downtown. I'll be take what we've heard tonight, the questions that y'all share with us in the box, face to face, the questions we hear next week, anything else we think of, we're ready to a vote. Then please come on out and talk to us more than if you want to. And then the other dates, I guess we'll be looking at the election qualifying. But Director, will be sharing.
Yeah, one more is the joint meeting with the staff, which is on July 19th. Pleasant View Road.
So 2 5, we have a joint meeting. Well, we'll be meeting technically in the Clarke County School District Board of Education will be our guests and we just talk about stuff.
And Jim and I have had to add, at the next meeting, we will work on having numbers and an idea to identify the voters will be affected.
Next Tuesday.
Yeah, I'll be working with Giannis and get that done.
All right. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Second, Ms. Farrell, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 6:59.
Thank y'all so much for coming. We would love to talk to you one-on-one if you want to. Look at the maps.
Now, the little questions, please, just send us an email.
Look at these.
Look out the cards.
Big one, right?
Everything.
Stop.